Now moving on to Brazil, the most popular politician there, former President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva, wants to be president again. Lula just registered as a candidate from jail, where he's serving time for corruption. So will the courts really let a convicted criminal run? And if so, does any other candidate stand a chance? Let me bring in Remi Piet, live from Miami. He's a senior director at America's Market Intelligence. So Remi, realistically speaking, what are Lula's chances when he's behind bars serving time?
Well, almost none, because there's a law in Brazil that says that if you've been convicted in the second court of appeal, which is the case of Lula, you should not be allowed to run for any kind of public office, which is actually quite ironic because Lula is really leading by a large margin in the polls now, gathering almost 30% of the intentions of votes. So right now here, there's an area of uncertainty towards before October 17, when the ballot is going to happen, to see when will the court system confirm that Lula will not be allowed to run, and when is co-listed candidate, which is Fernando Haddad, which is the former mayor of São Paulo, will actually be enlisted as the representative of the Partido dos Trabalhadores, PT party from Lula.
And as you mentioned, Lula remains extremely popular. Fascinating, considering there's so much voter dissatisfaction and distrust of Brazil's traditional parties. Why is he so popular?
Well, he's popular because he's actually playing the scapegoat, the card of the victim of the establishment that is turning back towards against him, saying that he's corrupt. Which, in some extent, I mean, it's true that actually, when you're looking at the trial against Lula, he has been convicted of minor wrongdoings, actually corruption, but minor compared to other leaders in Brazil. The entire political class in Brazil has from one way or another been linked to the Lava Jato scandal of corruption, and therefore looking at Lula being behind bars when others are still in power right now is considered by the Brazilian population as something somewhat ironic, and is actually paying for the entire political class. We have right now an administration in charge, which is led by President Temer, which is probably the most unpopular administration in history in Brazil, and that actually allows for out-of-the-box candidates such as right-wing Bolsonaro or other candidates such as Marina Silva to try to be the leading front candidate for upcoming elections in case Lula doesn't run.
Is there any evidence that all these charges against him and his conviction, we were talking about fake news in the U.S., that perhaps is not true? I mean, is there any evidence of that?
Well, there is, and Lula has been receiving some gifts from corporation, and that's a whole political system that has to be strongly reformed and changed. And Lula is not responsible for the political system. However, he has benefited from it, but to a smaller extent than other politicians that are right now out of the sphere of justice and are not being convicted. So that's this feeling from the left-wing parties that they actually are being used as the victim of the system, and then they're responsible for the system itself. While President Temer was and other of his allies are actually on tape for receiving funds from the meat industry, from other sectors of the Brazilian economy, and are not being right now charged by the judges. So there is this feeling that the media, the large industries, more than anything, the agro industry also are actually preventing the left-wing parties to go back into power. That the right-wing President Temer actually took control of the party by impeaching Dilma Rousseff, which was actually the successor of Lula, but that was not through a ballot, that was not through election. It was actually, from the left perspective, an institutional coup against what was an electing movement that was able to cut down poverty, to reduce a series of inequalities in the country, and that actually might not have been seen as a favorable move from the establishment and from the right wing of the country that took control of the reins of the country again.
All right, we'll leave it there. Remi Piet, thank you.